change the channel brush on the 202, we need to make sure that the brush isn't any shorter than 100mm. It definitely needs changing then, roughly about a hand's width. Otherwise we start damaging these little curb edges. We've got 4 bolts on our quick release brush plate, and we've got an elongated slot with a hole in the middle that's big enough to drop the bolt through. So what we need to do is slacken each bolt, leaving enough room so the brush can turn and drop through the holes. And we've got it on level ground so we can just drop it in a safe location, because these wires can get quite sharp and do some damage. So it's just a case of loosening the bolts, turning the brush round to get it in a decent position to achieve all bolts, twisting the brush and then dropping it onto the ground safely. Just make sure you slacken the bolts enough to leave yourself enough room to slide it round on the brush plate. Making sure you don't trap your fingers anywhere when you're bringing the brush round, and making sure you're wearing appropriate gloves as well. Easy enough to do, just make sure everything's clean as well, makes it a lot easier. What we do now, you can see the bolts moving, we'll just move the brush round and drop it out through the brush plate onto the ground. Just make sure you're not underneath the bristles, because they can get quite sharp. Bring the brush out the way. Once the brush is removed, we make sure we grease the brush motor before we put the new brush on, and there's a grease nipple on the side of the motor there. Just make sure we see grease coming out the top, so it's all packed out and everything's good and all the dirt's got rid of, and then we'll put the new brush on. Once you've greased your brush motor, you're ready to put your new brush on. Making sure your 4 bolts have got enough room to travel through the brush plate, so we can put it in place and twist it round and then tighten them up. When we do tighten them, we do opposites up to a point, the other 2 opposites, and then we nip them up tight. Just prevents any damage or bowing of the brush plate. So when ready, we line the bolts up with the holes on the brush plate and we slide it into place. And it's important to note on this brush, because it turns this way, the bolt should be at the back of the slot. Otherwise, if you get it the wrong way around, the brush could actually come off, and you can normally see where the previous markings are. Once it's just nipped up, we'll bring it round. Now those 2 are slightly on the holding the brush plate, but they're not tight. And we'll do the last one, and then we'll go around and nip them all up. Just give them a last tighten now. Make sure the brush is secure all the way around. And that's it, all done.